5 unique items that kind of suck. These are not necessarily the worst unique items in the game, and they're not in any kind of order. They're just not worth your time outside of role-playing or collecting to gather dust in your 6th home. By unique item, that means any kind of unique appearance to an item, or any kind of item that has effects that you couldn't yourself make as the player. Number 1. Imperial Britches.
You're an Imperial bitch.
The first unique item I want to mention that sucks balls is the Imperial Britches.
You're an Imperial bitch.
I think it's pronounced Imperial Britches.
You're an Imperial bitch.
Thorinir was very insistent that he would lose something if we went with the original pronunciation.
You're an Imperial bitch.
You can find these at the copious coin purse sold by Thorinir. These are really overpriced garbage. With a base value of 2500, you're going to be spending much more than that unless you wait for late game to pick them up. By then though, they'll be completely useless. A quick look at my level 1 character shows Thorinir asking for 5200 septims for them, and they are absolutely crap, especially considering he stole them from the dead. All they do is fortify personality, speechcraft and mercantile by 5 points. Even if you could somehow afford them in the early game, that is pants. Literally. 5 points to those 3 stats is such an inconsequential advantage that it's probably actually a detriment. Let's say that you do spend around 5000 septims on them in the early game. That 5 mercantile skill isn't going to help you recuperate that investment for a very, very long time. Speechcraft can be leveled really quickly and easily. You could get those 5 points in about as many minutes in the early game, or just use a really easy to obtain charm spell. And 5 points of personality will barely boost the disposition cap. As it's an item of clothing, you also won't be getting any protection from them either. Unless you're role-playing, or just feel bad for Thorinir's poor life choices, stay away from that son of a breach. So how would I fix them? Well, it's quite simple in my eyes. I wouldn't actually have them up for sale in Thorinir's store. I would have them as a reward for either completing the Unfriendly Competition quest, maybe it's a gift from Jensine, or even the Corrupt Imperial Watchman quest. I just feel like it's more suited as an item for an early game quest reward, where it's going to have a little bit of a benefit, but beyond the early game, there's just literally no point in them. Number 2, Mayans Razor. Starting off with a Daedric artifact, you'll see a bit of a theme there, even though it doesn't show up as a Daedric artifact in the log. You have to go through a very long and slightly tedious dungeon from the original DLC to get your hands on this one. This is the only quote-unquote Daedric artifact in Oblivion Remastered that is leveled, but let's assume that the player does this at the max possible level. You can get a dagger that is equal in strength, speed and reach as a normal Daedric dagger, and Mayans Razor only wins out on gold value and durability. It's twice as durable, but durability is not much of an issue given how accessible repair hammers or repairmen are, especially later on in the game when your armorer's skill is going to mean you're hanging onto repair hammers quite easily. So what does it do from an enchantment perspective at level 20? It disintegrates armor 15 points for 7 seconds, which is not all that great, since disintegrate in general is just too slow to really be effective. You'd much rather just be doing extra damage instead. And finally, it has a unique effect called Daedric Banishing, which has a 2 to 11% chance of instantly killing the target, depending on your luck attribute. Now that's what it was in OG Oblivion. It was actually scripted to be 1 to 10%, but I'm not sure if they fixed it or not in the remastered. So let's just assume that it's 11%. That chance may sound okay, but it's only if you fortify your luck to 200 plus points or take advantage of exploits. This requires you casting some really strong fortify spells or using some fortify luck enchantments or potions. But even if we assume that the player has achieved that very high level of luck, 11% is really not that high of a chance to make this weapon worth it. What's more, this weapon only works on non-essential NPCs and doesn't affect creatures at all. It is alleged that this was to stop the player from using the weapon to kill Mehrunes Dagon in the final scene. The final nail in the coffin for this weapon is that it can actually get the wielder killed. If the target has a reflect spell ability, whether it's a creature or NPC, you may instantly kill yourself. So to summarize, you need to be level 20, you need to do a long and largely uninteresting dungeon delve for a dagger that is situational, and even when the situation arises, it's unlikely to be of much value. And it can get the wielder killed in some circumstances. especially as late game coming across enemies that have reflect spell abilities becomes a lot more frequent. So how would I make it more worthwhile? Well, it's supposed to be the dagger crafted by Mehrunes Dagon himself, therefore I would increase the raw damage output by 1 point to make it more powerful than a normal Daedric dagger. Next, I would enhance the disintegrate armor ability to 25 points for 7 seconds. Next, I would increase the max % chance of instantly killing the target to 15%, and I would also make it so the Daedra banishment effect actually bypasses reflect spell, similar to how arrows bypass the reflect damage effect. Number 3, the Mask of Clavicus Vial. Yet another Daedric artifact that absolutely sucks balls. It's equivalent in protection to a Daedric helmet while being more durable and slightly heavier. Yes, it looks pretty cool, but seriously, who would trade one of the best swords in the game in Umbra for a helmet that merely boosts your personality by 20 points and looks pretty decent? Personality is the worst attribute to boost in the game. Maybe if the helmet also boosted Speechcraft and Mercantile by 50 points each, it'd be a little bit better, but even then, no one who is not role-playing would choose this over Umbra. What makes this helmet really irredeemable though, is that you can get Umbra at level 1. You just go to the ruin, kill Umbra yourself if you are really good at the game, or lure Umbra to be killed by city guards and take the sword. That gives you one of the most powerful swords in the game at level 1, and it will have 0 weight. However, let's say that you're not using that exploit and you're doing the quest legitimately. You can't get the Clavicus Vial's mask until level 20. That's when the quest opens up. You go there at level 20, you give him 500 gold, you kill Umbra, and then you trade the sword for the mask. By level 20, who in their right mind needs the boost of 20 points to personality? Honestly, there's no way to fix the Mask of Clavicus Vial without completely reworking it. The protection is very normal for that level, and the enchantment is garbage. You'd have to really boost the protection provided by the helmet and also completely overhaul the enchantment. Honestly, now that I think about it, even the 50 points to Mercantile and Speechcraft would not suffice. You'd also need another Fortify enchantment for 50 points on there as well. Maybe something like Fortify Luck 50 points as well would be a good one to have, and only then would it maybe be desirable over the Umbra Sword. But I doubt it. Number 4, the Helm of the Deep Delver. This is an item that can be purchased from the Three Brothers trade goods in the Market District. It's equivalent in appearance and stats to a Dwarven helmet, which is a mid-tier helmet. But what makes it unique is that it has 4 enchantments attached, which can't be achieved by the player. It has 2 positive effects, 1 neutral effect and 1 debuff. It boosts the player's resistance to poison and disease by 30% each, which isn't really that strong. Poisons are fairly rarely used on the player. Some goblins use them and some bandits and some necromancers, but that's it really. Poisons are strong when the player uses them, but the NPCs are not intelligent enough to use them wisely. Diseases are equally rare and can only be received by wild animals and some undead. Diseases almost always amount to a minor inconvenience, unless you literally never go to an altar to cure yourself or use a spell or a potion, so you end up being a walking STD with 5 different diseases. The light effect I classify as a neutral effect. It can sometimes be useful if you don't have any torches or light or night eye spells, but while it does make it easier to see, it also makes it easier to be seen. So kiss goodbye to strategizing or stealthily approaching foes, as they will see you coming a mile off. It's only really worth it if you're prepared to go into a dungeon guns blazing. Speaking of guns blazing, the negative effect is that it drains your speed by 5 points. While not a lot, it is still detrimental, especially more so in the early game when your speed is going to be quite low anyway. This is obviously meant to be an early game helmet, but it's quite expensive. So by the time you've accumulated enough gold to even purchase this helmet, it's already going to be outclassed by better stuff. Honestly, there's no real reason to waste the near 6,000 septims on a mediocre helmet with mildly situational but weak uses. Especially as you can just go and get Fin Gleam for free very early on in the game, and it's a better helmet all around. Its glass quality and its enchantments are a little bit more useful than this helm. So how would I improve the helmet? Well, I would lower the base cost manually inside of the construction set to make it a bit more affordable at early levels. And second of all, because it's supposed to be an adventurous helm for deep delving, I think about what might be useful to a player early in the game. Well, one problem that we always have is we don't have enough encumbrance to take all of our nice loot back with us. And while the remaster version has improved the encumbrance system, as you can actually walk even while you're over encumbered, it is still tedious when you move really slow, and of course you still can't fast travel. So what I think would benefit the Helm early game is making it a little bit cheaper, and then also adding an enchantment to help out with encumbrance, such as maybe Fortify Strength 7 points, or Feather 75 points. And the Mace of Magball. Another Daedric artifact to make the list. This is a one-handed blunt weapon that has the effect to absorb strength 5 points for 10 seconds, and absorb magicka for 5 points on strike. It has a base damage of 25, and remember your blunt skill and current fatigue is going to impact how much damage it actually does, so for most of the game it's going to be much lower than that. It also has a weight of 45, which means it will consume a decent amount of fatigue to swing it, especially for power attacks. Its speed and reach is normal for maces, its health is sizable at 1500, and it has a value of 4900. You also get 44 uses of the enchantment before it needs recharging. So let's talk about the good things. The good thing is its health size of 1500. That's kind of it. Everything else is either mediocre or not very good. This weapon especially sucked really hard in the original, as the Absorb Strength enchantment had a duration of 0 seconds, which meant that the Absorb Strength part did absolutely nothing at all, but they fixed that in the remaster. Even so, absorbing strength is just an okay effect. It's decent, but it's not like game changing. The absorb magic is going to be almost negligible by the time that you get hold of the mace, as your magic reserves by that point are going to be very high, and the cost of casting spells is also going to be decently high. You're barely going to notice the 5 points. The value of 4900 really isn't all that much gold if you plan on selling it, not that most people do sell Daedric artifacts, to be honest. The weight of the weapon is pretty heavy, and as I said earlier, that's going to consume fatigue. The quest to obtain the mace is fine, I guess, but this isn't really about the quest. But what is important is the fact that you need to be level 17 to even do the quest to get the mace. That's only 1 level after ebony weapons start appearing in the game, and 3 levels before Daedric. Ebony maces are only ever so slightly weaker than this mace, and Daedric maces are just 1 point of damage weaker. Honestly, you'd be better off at this level getting an ebony mace, and then at level 17 getting a maxed out sigil stone to enchant it with. Or just wait a few more levels and do the same with a Daedric mace. For a mace that is supposed to be a Daedric artifact, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's a nice showpiece for a house, but otherwise it's really not worth your time. So how would I improve the mace in a balanced way? Well, unfortunately, weapons in general are just underpowered in Oblivion when compared to the damage output of magic. That's down to the whole formula to do with fatigue, skill, etc, etc. But yeah, like I said, weapons in general need to be 20 to 30% stronger than they currently are in general to be competitive with magic in this game. But that's a topic for another day. How would I make it balanced in the environment that's already been set? Well, I would increase the base damage by about 3 points. I would give it 20 more charges before it runs out of its enchantment. And for the enchantment itself, I would leave the Absorb Strength as it is, that's just okay I guess. And I would increase the Absorb Magic effect to 20 points per strike instead of 5. This would make it a solid late game choice for mages that also specialise in blunt. If you can think of some really awful, unique items in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered, please post them down in the comments section below. I will read them, and I'll be interested to see your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you all on my next video.